Well, welcome to this week's podcast. Today we have Dr. Elena Douvlou from the Metropolitan College in Greece, our co-editor of the book, to talk about a specific chapter in the intercultural competence through virtual exchange as a tool in achieving the SDGs book. Her particular research focuses on the immersive virtual reality as a tool to promote sustainable development goals. So this is going to be a really interesting podcast in terms of how she uses immersive virtual reality in teaching. So welcome, Elena. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kelly, for the introduction. I'm very excited to have this podcast with you from my position as the author of the chapter related to virtual reality, immersive virtual reality. And I would just like to say that the chapter discusses the contribution of education in developing intercultural competence as a way of promoting the sustainable development goals, and it draws on literature available related to the advantages as well as the challenges of the use of virtual reality in providing engaging, immersive, and interactive learning experiences. And this is what we're going to refer to today, a very exciting case study and its evaluation. And we're going to conclude with some amazing findings related to how this encourages collaborative learning along with possible areas for development in virtual reality as a pedagogical tool. Now, if you will allow me, I would like also to kind of set the context of virtual reality. First of all, I would like to say that this is a technology into educational settings that provides a unique immersive environment for learners to enhance their understanding of diverse cultures. And of course, the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 has increased largely the amount of time we spend in virtual environments. This is true for everyone, either working or being involved in education. And although there are some skeptics that this could reduce the ability to experience the real world directly, and I think we felt it a lot during the lockdowns in the pandemic, it didn't actually limit the potential to empower us by increasing knowledge and gave us access to natural surroundings for a variety of target audiences, and more importantly, at any time. And this also necessitated a change in the way many people in the industry, in the academia around the world worked, interacted, and collaborated, bringing with it, of course, new challenges, requirements, and many opportunities. So virtual reality offers a lot of advantages over real-life experiences and can be a useful tool in overcoming these challenges.
Outstanding, outstanding. But I would like, before we go too much further, for our audience to understand what you are using the word immersive virtual reality. Can you talk about what that means?
That is correct. It's very important to understand the difference between the primary categories of virtual reality. They're classified into two primary categories: the immersive virtual reality and the desktop virtual reality. What we actually used in this particular case study, it's the immersive virtual reality, which is usually multimodal, offering a kind of an oral stimulation via earbuds and 360 degrees images via a head-mounted display, and of course, a feeling of immersion in the environment. I would like to focus particularly on the head-mounted display devices. There are many kinds available. They range from very expensive models, and we have seen that around, to more affordable alternatives like the Google Cardboard. The important thing to note here is that they all share the same fundamental principles of operation. Head-mounted display will typically present an image to each eye from a slightly different angle. And this solution imitates the natural optic function, enable the wearer to perceive a stereoscopic image with depth perception and a broad field of vision.
Mm, mm. And talk about how students access these headsets.
Well, the case study actually happened over the course of 3 years, and it happened before, during, and after the pandemic. So in the first virtual exchange that we collaborated, the students were provided the goggles from the respective institutions, academic institutions. During the pandemic, it was not possible to have a physical presence in our institutions. So they had to actually purchase them themselves. So they opted for a very affordable set of head-mounted displays, which costed very little as $10. So they actually had a device in their home, which they could also use for entertainment and for other activities apart from the educational activities that they were involved in this particular case study. So this is it was a very affordable way to use technology. Of course, they also had to use their smartphones. The smartphones were mounted on the head-mounted display. And I will explain how they used these videos that we recorded, and through their head-mounted displays, they were able to be transferred into different locations around the world.
Okay, and so perhaps what the next logical thing that we should talk about for our audience is the recordings, and then we'll go back to the actual case study, the site. So how are the recordings made?
Well, the instructors prepared a set of video recordings which were edited, and where it was deemed appropriate, narrations were also added in order to provide additional information on the history of the area and direct students' attention to problems associated with the industrial activity, both ecological and social, that we wanted to bring to their attention. The material was available to all students through collaborative platforms, and they were able to access the material anytime during their respective courses, and with the use of their smartphones and the head-mounted displays provided by their respective institutions, or as I explained before, during the pandemic, they had to purchase them themselves to have an immersive experience of the case study they had to evaluate.
And so these recordings, just to kind of reiterate the obvious, these recordings were 360-degree recordings.
They were 360 degrees recording in various locations related to the case study. Now, I can provide a little bit more context of the case study, and obviously about the cohorts, which actually puts it more into the educational context of how this case study worked. The student cohorts were from the penultimate year of architecture studies and urban design in a course in Greece, while the other cohort were from a social sciences background course with a focus on environmental worldviews. The classrooms, they took place in, as I said, in 3 consecutive years, and the virtual exchange was designed to focus on project-based learning case study in Greece, which the students from Metropolitan College in Athens were taking the lead. And they were taking the lead because they had to actually prepare an urban analysis on the historical, perceptual, and environmental issues of that particular area. It presents a particularity, the case study, because it's a very historic area in Athens with heavy industry, and once was deemed to be one of the most polluted areas in the Mediterranean Sea. So it presented a a very intricate topic of discussion, both for the students in the School of Architecture that they were looking to remediate the site, also from the students coming from the social sciences and the environmental worldviews. There were different steps that we had to take in building up this collaborative virtual exchange. Can I discuss about the various steps here?
I think so. So just to kind of emphasize, so this was a site in Greece. It was an ancient site, heavily polluted, much like what we see the pollutions from industry in the US and in Europe from brownfields redevelopment. And this site then was recorded so that students from the US, as well as your own students, could actually be immersed, actually see the site's intricacies, all of the abandoned buildings and the landscape in their 360 recording through their goggles.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, please tell us more.
Well, the case study and the virtual exchange collaboration was actually structured around 5 very distinctive components. That included, first of all, the intercultural training and self-assessment. So before the actual engagement, students from both the classes, they received some intercultural training. And that was to evaluate themselves using a variety of online cultural tests to identify their communication styles and cultural traits. So it was very important for students to consider how they may modify their communication to enhance these cross-cultural interactions. And the students from Greece created video presentations with the use of VoiceThread, where they were introducing themselves and their academic program, and of course, how they got involved in this particular case study. The second step was the building of the team, and that involved 2 synchronous meetings with scaffolding support. Of course, the students in both cohorts, they received a significant amount of guidance and information from their respective academic partners, and the importance, of course, of incorporating contemporary perspectives in a global context, because they had to use that later on in the collaboration. The third element, the third step, was that virtual field visit to the industrial sites using the virtual reality technology. So the students worked together on a project involving this urban remediation plan for a brownfield site in Greece, as well as the surrounding urban context. This was presented as a virtual field trip experience in this project-based learning to engage the students, and it entailed an organizing of the cleanup and the revitalization of former industrial sites situated along the waterfront in the town of Elefsina. The instructors of the project, we produced a number of virtual reality recordings, as we said before, using the Views VR 3D 360 camera on location. So it involved a lot of vigilant preparation from the instructors. And of course, narratives that were added later on to help direct students to particular areas and particular issues. The following step was 2 synchronous meetings following the virtual reality field trip. Now, this was interesting because both sets of students reviewed the urban analysis prepared by the architecture students, its current environmental problems, its social challenges, and they also drafted conclusions on how this city could actually move forward in the future. They also discussed ideas for the remediation of the former industrial sites. So coming from an architectural background and environmental sciences background, this was very interesting because they actually covered a variety of issues that related to this particular case study. The final part of the collaborative project involved the completion and evaluation of the project. The students completed the project proposal for remediating the former industrial site with a full master plan, and they proposed digital walkthrough models, while the social science students reviewed the presentation, providing comments on the virtual reality presentation made, applying concepts of overburdened communities, their environmental worldview theories to describe all the potential impacts from the project to those communities. Both cohorts of students provided feedback on the overall course through various means, including students' reflections, in-class feedback, take-home assignments, and course evaluation surveys. So this was a very structured collaboration with very meaningful experiences that the students actually had also to evaluate and reflect upon its conclusion.
You know, what I find really fascinating about this approach, a couple things. First, without having a tremendous carbon footprint, you were able to bring students from distant places to work together and be immersed in the field site without having to travel. And that really opens up many opportunities for students who either do not have the time or the resources or work-life balance to literally transport themselves to a site overseas or in some distance. So I thought that's a great accessibility option.
Exactly. And first of all, it had some environmental benefits, less footprint instead of traveling to those places. It doesn't really take them out of their life work schedule. So it gives them the opportunity to travel without having to reschedule their whole lives. Obviously, it's a very affordable technology to participate in this class. We also had a visually impaired student that why was participating from the social sciences cohort. Why was not possible for her to look into the images. She actually participated by hearing the narratives and was almost able to have the same immersive experience as the rest of the students, creating, the images with her fantasy, which was amazing. And this is reflected also to the students' evaluation, that they said that learning was facilitated by this ability to be immersed into a virtual environment, which was way better than merely hear or even see a two-dimensional image about the place. So it had a lot of benefits. Students came back with quotes of creating a feeling of a study abroad that allowed the experience of being in Greece, in Elefsina, without the cost of travel, and that it enhanced their learning of the course and of sustainability issues. And it helped them to be able to look at certain issues through the lens of a different culture, so directly from the people living in those places. So the idea of having those students actually building also a relationship prior to their evaluation of the case study allowed them also to hear their voices and their perspectives, and vice versa, of course.
Yes, the project-based learning component, I think, of this virtual exchange is really fascinating because you were bringing together different disciplines, like you said, the social science students and then the architecture students, and bringing them together to work on a revitalization of a land use. And that's very common and happening where a proposer of a land use has to reach out to the public and get the input from the public, which can be not at all based on architecture, right? And so the architecture students who are learning how to do this remediation through their proposals and revitalization have to work with the public and stakeholders who may not speak the same language.
Exactly. And this was one of the interesting parts that both cohorts of students came back into analyzing, evaluating, and finding it fascinating that they were able actually to incorporate into their final proposals the voices of the community, the local community, and not to stay merely on the images created or on the analysis, but also to incorporate um, uh, practical solutions and suggestions for not only for remediating the site, but also bringing value back to the community, the local community involved. So this was fascinating for the students. It was a kind of an all-inclusive case study that started from the analysis of the site and to the proposal. And I think this was very beneficial to both cohorts of students that although they saw it, as you mentioned before, from very different perspectives, so architects saw it more from the way architecture can contribute into a better quality of life, to accessibility, to making to the remediation of industrial sites into healthy parks and services and amenities for the local community. And the social science students were able to see it in terms of the environmental benefits, because everybody wants to live in a better, healthier place.
That's outstanding. And I think it's just wonderful that you are providing this experience through virtual exchange for all students, students who cannot travel or have any kind of um, impairment that would prevent them from actually participating. And one would think that using these goggles would prevent students with a visual impairment to not participate, but just the opposite. They participated fully then.
Exactly. And I think it was also encouraged by the narratives that were added to the 3D and 360 videos that were created helped a lot, because it also included, in some cases, also the natural surrounding noises. So the students were able to actually understand, be transmitted into that this particular context, understand, the noise of the traffic of industrial traffic, of the ships that were coming in and out from the port, the heavy trucks bringing in industrial material and waste. Then how this was changing as we were moving into a different site, the calmness, the quietness, more natural sounds like birds and the sound of the trees. So it was interesting to see how these videos actually created different puzzles, but at the same time it gave a very complete image of the different areas of the town, and also of the possibilities, and how people occupy or not occupy a space. Because people usually occupy a space where they have something to do, where they not only it's accessible to them, but also a place where they can actually have activities, share experiences with others, bring the community together. So this was very important for the students and very much appreciated by them.
Outstanding. Well, we're going to wrap up here. Is there some takeaway that you would like to give, perhaps from the instructor's standpoint in using immersive virtual reality as we close?
Absolutely. First of all, this particular virtual reality collaboration entailed kind of lots of asymmetrical. It was asymmetrical in a number of levels. Okay, it created a lot of opportunities for the students to be in a very structured learning environment, but also it involved a lot of involvement from the two academic partners. One thing is that we had to be trained on the use of the immersive virtual reality technology, which was partly the way that the video recordings and the narratives were rendered, and they had to be ready in time for the students to use them. So it involved a lot of time of preparation from both academics before the collaboration even started. The logistics of the collaboration also involved a lot of synchronous and asynchronous meetings. But for the synchronous meetings, I would like to say that it involved a lot of time changes during the meetings. So academics had to be sure that the students were actually involved in the case studies in the synchronous meetings knew when and how to meet with their partners in the other institution. It's important also to mention that the evaluation part of the project involved a lot of different ways of analyzing the results from both institutions, both in terms of the quality of the work produced, but also in terms of the results that the collaboration had on the student learning, the impact on the student learning. So yes, all in all, it gave us pedagogical tools that we can actually use and implement in many more virtual exchange collaborations in the future.
Well, that's outstanding. And I think very innovative as a pedagogical tool to bring in that visual and the soundscape, as you mentioned, into the class for both of the global learning partners. And then to come together and work in different ways on the final project. That sounds fascinating. And I suspect very engaging for your students.
I would like also just to mention one more thing, that the virtual exchange is emerging as a very important pedagogical tool. And there are lots of case studies that they haven't been published yet. So it would be nice to share our experience of using virtual reality in different disciplines. At the moment, architecture, engineering, and sciences are actually the disciplines that they are mostly involved in virtual exchanges with the use of immersive virtual reality, but there are lots of possible applications. So it would be great if educators using virtual reality as a pedagogical tool to publish their results, share it with the academic community, and see how we can actually make this an even stronger and a more important part of our learning process.
Thank you, Dr. Douvlou. And I think this innovative use of immersive virtual reality is really interesting, particularly in the virtual exchange format. Thank you for your time and for sharing your innovative pedagogy with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly.
Bye-bye.